welcome to this month's video of temporal self-preparedness, and today we're talking with Cindy Buckner about important documents and things that we may want to have around and keep in good condition and protected. So Cindy, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So tell me, why do we care about documents in terms of temporal preparedness?
Well, when there's an emergency, the worst thing to have to do is to find documents. Whether it's something like your house is burning down and you need to grab stuff, you need to be able to get it quickly, or you have to leave home for something. To have it all in one place is really helpful. But it's also in the case of, say, a death. If your spouse dies, trying to get all that information together when you're in a crisis mode is really difficult. Whereas if you already have copies of them, then you're prepared and you can deal with things much quicker.
We're in a digital age.
Yes.
Everything's on somebody's cell phone. Why do I need to have paper? Or do I need to have paper?
It's helpful. Now, when I first made my portfolio, it was before the digital age. So it had to be on paper, and having that collection of papers was really helpful. Now that it is digital, I like to go both ways. I prepare it on the computer, but then I print it out and have it in my book so that I can take it with me anywhere I go if needed. But I also have that digital copy. I email it to myself so that it's always in the cloud. I can always access it. But for me, I use this book all the time. If I need one of my kids' social security numbers, I grab it out. If I need to know their immunization date, I grab it out. It's just the quickest place to grab everything I need, and so I use it every week, probably, if not more.
Okay. And some documents, like a title to a car, you can't have a printed copy or a PDF. You have to have the original.
Right. Well, I keep all my originals in a fire safe box or in a safe deposit box. So everything I keep in here is copies, but it's at least a reference point. So we're not talking about the originals. You want to keep them in a very safe spot. But to have a copy, a quick reference, it can mean the difference of getting what you need or having to wait weeks for it.
Especially during a crisis.
During a crisis, right.
And COVID was a good example that everything takes longer.
Yes, well, if offices shut down, right, you can't get copies.
Yeah.
So to have it, my marriage certificate, it's not too often I need it, but I know where I have a copy of it immediately if I do, and I don't have to go to my safe deposit box to get that.
Now, you mentioned a fire safe box for your original documents, but you also mentioned something off premise?
Well, now that fire safe boxes are so good, that's all I use. Some people prefer the safe deposit box, but I figure if there's a fire, it's supposed to last through that. I don't know what disaster would ruin my fire safe box.
Right. And
so that my originals, but I need my originals often enough that if I store them in a safe deposit box, it's hard to get to them.
Yeah.
So I just keep them here at the house, but in a fire safe box.
So maybe you could describe to us some of the documents that you would recommend that people have.
Right. So, the first thing is to figure out how you want to do it. I've seen it done different ways. I was taught this a lot of years ago, and it's just a notebook, a binder that we keep it all together in. It's called the family portfolio. And I just keep it on my bookshelf. I figure if a thief comes in, he's not going to be looking to see what books I have in my bookshelf. So it's a lot of information, but I figure it's pretty safe. I don't keep it under lock and key. I've seen it done in a file, just one of those accordion type files. Again, whatever keeps it in one place and is the most accessible to you is what I do. So mine is a combination of information. So like this page is just everybody in the family. It's the name, birthday, birthplace, address, social security, driver's license number, expiration dates, all that personal information. But so there's a lot of personal information I keep here. We do membership numbers such as airline numbers or your TSA pre-check or any of those types of numbers. Keep all the family contacts, phone numbers, emails, everything like that. And other family advisors, your banker, your attorney, your mechanic, your bishop, any of those things. Again, information that you want readily available in an emergency. So that's one section. That's the personal section. Then there's a financial section that would include our bank account information, credit cards, loans, insurance policies, and any other accounts, 401ks, any of that type of information, and also phone numbers of where to call. Say you lose your credit card, you don't have that, and if you don't have your computer, you can't rely on having the internet in a crisis.
Yeah.
And so having it written down in one place, again, is helpful. And I mean, you think about it, if your spouse dies, either I die and he doesn't know anything, or he dies, but I need a lot of information about his work accounts.
Right.
And if I don't have him here, I would have a really hard time getting that information, and that just adds to the grieving process and the stress of the whole situation. Whereas now we have it all here, we both have access to it and have everything we need. Yeah. So then the other section we do in here is medical. So again, medical information you might need very quickly, and it may not be accessible on the internet at the time you need it.
Yeah.
So by having it written, if you've got kids, trying to keep track of all that stuff is really hard. I keep a list of all the doctors, dentists, eye doctors, everybody. Just having that list, phone numbers, addresses can be really helpful. Copies of the insurance cards. You never know. I mean, you may not have a card with you, but to have that copy in your book is really helpful. And then I do all of our immunization records. Every time we go to the doctor's office, they give you a new printout with the current immunization thing, and I take out the old one, put the new one in. So we always have the current immunization situation for each of us in the family.
Nice.
And then the last section of documents is actually about funerals. Because if you have an unexpected death, do you really want to be thinking, okay, what do I have to do? This is just a checklist of things that you should be doing.
Yeah.
So there's that checklist, and then there's also, you can make your own instructions for your memorial, you can write your own obituary, you can have all of that here, and again, it's accessible to the person who needs it. I mean, if both spouses die, you leave children, how in the world would they find all this information unless it's in one place that they know they can access in an emergency?
Yeah.
It protects everybody, and I've never needed it in a big crisis. But as I say, I use mine on a weekly, if not sometimes daily basis. So then just the last section is just important. It's the copies of all of our important documents. So I have all of our birth certificates, as well as our wills, our powers of attorney, any of those. I have copies of the car titles, insurance policies. That's the title to our home, the deed. Our marriage certificate. Oh, no, that's not. There's our marriage certificate, our passports, copies of those. You can also put in copies of your resume. Someone suggested that, or your pet information, the vet's number, their chip information. There's really no limit to what information you can include in a book like this. Whatever you have will be helpful in an emergency and sometimes in a non-emergency. So for me, this book has just been, it saved me, throughout the years, and that's without even having a crisis. It's been a huge help. But so I have this, a lot of these pages I fill out online, and then, or not online, but just on the computer, and then I save a digital copy, I email it to myself, and that way I have it in the cloud also. And what I need to do is scan in all of those documents, so I have that online copy, again, all in one place, all in one email that I can access on the cloud, so that if I can't get my book, if we're out of town when something happens,
right,
I have quick access to. Can you imagine being in another state and having a death and needing information right away? What do you do? Another bit of information that you can include is the serial numbers of tools, electronics, different things. Having that list of serial numbers, if there's a theft, you have all those serial numbers right there with everything else. You know what you need to know.
I've heard people say it's good to have a pictures or video of your house, so that if you, like you just mentioned, a theft, that's how you can prove what's there,
right,
and what the contents were, and then maybe even be dated.
Right, but having those serial numbers helps you get your things back. right? Not just I lost this, but that's the exact one that I lost. So keeping a list of serial numbers can be really helpful in that situation. So I love the book, and I highly recommend it to everybody. It's just, when you need it, you'll wish you had it. I have online blank copies of everything that I'd be happy to share with anybody, and then it's really just filling in the blanks for your personal family.
Thank you, Cindy. Really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.